All right, everybody, I'd like to introduce our next presentation here at the Planet MicroCap Showcase Vancouver. It's the team, the Hemrick family. We got Dan and Steele from Integrated Global Software. Take it away.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so we are Interfield Global Software Inc. We're a publicly listed company on the NEO Exchange, which is now the CIBO Canada. I am the president and co-founder of the business, Steele Hemrick. Dane Hemrick, my brother, is also a co-founder and the chief of operations.
Hello, everyone.
We're based in although we're a Canadian company, we're based in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, is our chief of operations area. We've been there for over 20 years in the region. We built multiple successful businesses. It's a tremendous place to do business. It's a great place to build a software platform and to integrate with the global community. So you see our cautionary statements. You can take a look at it quickly. And so what we're doing at Interfield is creating the world's largest procurement ecosystem for industrial equipment. When we talk about industrial equipment, we're meaning oil and gas, mining, transport, heavy machinery, renewables, marine, and then intercompany rental opportunities in these markets as well. So we have our proprietary e-commerce platform called Equipment Hound, which is a B2B platform for industrial equipment. And we partner that with our proprietary data management solution that is Tool Suite that automates procurement activity, digitizes field intercompany rental opportunities to monetize idle assets. And so what you have in the market right now, from a competitive standpoint, is a lot of catalog sites like RigZone, RigFinder that you pay them a fee, you upload your equipment, but then everything's up to you. You have to vet the buyer has to vet the seller, all the testing, certification, logistics is up to you as well. So what we're doing at Interfield is creating that end-to-end Amazon solution where if you have something sitting in Houston and you want in Azerbaijan, we'll test it, certify it, and move it logistically for you to your end destination, along with providing ongoing support as well. From a data management solution, all these companies have an ERP system that does their contract management and accounting, but generally all of their field operations are done with Excel and paper, which is very slow, it's very inefficient. And so by integrating our data management solution to our e-commerce solution, we're able to automate and streamline a lot of their procurement activity. So we founded the company in 2014 in Dubai. In 2017, we created our MVP, our minimum viable product of Tool Suites, and went a very long and arduous development cycle to build it up to where it is today. And then we built Equipment Hound in early 2022. We started off with about $500,000 of committed inventory from our vendors, and now we're sitting at close to $250 million today, and starting to make sales and growing that network.
Another thing that happened during that period, specifically during COVID, was the adoption rate for technology in these industries just skyrocketed. People understood that you need real-time data. You need to, you couldn't, during that period, you couldn't fly into locations to go physically inspect the equipment. So the need for these digital solutions really skyrocketed, and doors were open to us when we started really talking to companies about what we had to offer.
When you're looking at the size of the markets, obviously, we're not just oil and gas, we're not just mining. We're looking at general industries, whether that's construction, manufacturing as well. And so generally, you're looking at close to a $500 billion market. That is our target market. We believe that market is actually much higher than that. And even from an oil and gas standpoint, Douglas Westwood's estimating that over the next 4 years, there's going to be about $525 billion worth of spending from equipment and machinery. So it's a very gigantic market. We're looking at taking a very small piece of that. And by being situated in the Middle East, I'm not sure how familiar people are with it, but between Saudi Arabia and Oman alone, they're going to drill 10,000 wells over the next 4 years. So when you're looking at a cost basis, some of these wells cost $20 million to complete from an energy and equipment infrastructure perspective. And so when you're extrapolating that by 10,000, it's a very large opportunity.
Well, to put that into more context as well, we just recently they put out a report about the oil, just strictly talking about oil and gas, the amount of projects within the Middle East, and the number is over the next 18 months, that number reaches above $400 billion billion, with UAE having about $100 billion chunk of that, and then you add in Saudi, Oman, Qatar, the surrounding regions. It's a tremendous opportunity, and we're perfectly situated to capitalize on that.
Most people want to know why we're in the UAE. Not only does it have the best logistical infrastructure of anywhere else in the world, it's also logistically connected to all of the major economies in the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and Africa. And the Middle East holds, 60% of the world's hydrocarbons. Africa holds well above 30% of the battery metals needed to build this energy transition future. And so by being situated in the Middle East, we have the ability to connect into all these different economies, using that as our base. Our long-term goal is to actually build up fulfillment centers in strategic economic zones. So the first one will be in the UAE. We also want to have one in Houston, then also select areas in Africa as well. This will allow us to streamline logistics, do testing certification in-house. It'll also allow us to be a forward procurement base for a lot of industrial equipment from international companies as well. And so we're looking at it from a competitive basis. What we're trying to do at Equipment Hound is to do for industry what Amazon did for retail. So what you have in the market right now are a lot of catalog sites, and so they're not integrated with the procurement cycles of the businesses. And so we're a bit of a hybrid in that sense. So not only are we connecting buyers and sellers together, we're also qualified for end user companies. So like Dubai Petroleum, Crescent Petroleum, we will qualify for Abu Dhabi National Oil Company by the end of the year. So we're actively bidding on projects at the same time as connecting buyers and sellers together, which means that anybody participating in our procurement network has access to all the contracts that we're bidding on as well. So, you're looking at other sites in the market. You have Ritchie Brothers, which everybody knows. They're very good at auctions. You have RigZone, which is more of an ad-based site where you have to pay them a fee to upload your equipment. Then you have Equipment Share, which does intercompany rentals primarily for construction equipment inside of the American market. And so nobody at this moment is actually doing that industrial segment that we're attacking.
Well, when you look at all the opportunities again in the Middle East, one of the things that we provide for companies that are based outside of the region but are looking to get in is that springboard, right? That maybe they don't have the capital or the general knowledge of how to get into these countries and how to get contracts. They can use us as that springboard because there's tremendous technologies located in places like North America as far as oil and gas technologies, mining equipment technology, and by using us to get that springboard, it saves them a ton of money on not having to set up these facilities themselves, and gives them access to a ton more contracts.
And really, inside of these industrial companies, people wonder why that nobody else is doing this, or why most of these companies cannot do a lot of this activity themselves. But the majority of the companies, so I'll use oil and gas as an example, they're very secretive. So you could have Halliburton and Schlumberger sitting next to each other. One might have a compressor that the other one needs, but they'll never pick up the phone. They're competing, and most of their employees don't have the actual access or the ability to communicate in between companies. So by having an anonymous platform to procure equipment through and to list equipment that they have for sale, it's much more attractive for them than an open marketplace. We've been signing some very, very large companies over the past 6 months. So Dubai Petroleum, Crescent Petroleum, which is a very large E&P producer in Kurdistan, Iraq. Al Mansuri, which is the largest oil and gas service company in the Middle East. Occidental Petroleum is now procuring equipment through us. Al Daboui, which is a large tire manufacturer in the UAE. Borr Drilling is a $2 billion company. Expro is another multi-billion-dollar company. And then you're looking at Lamprel, PTTEP, Ocean Oilfield, all integrated with our procurement network and actively procuring equipment in our system.
Yeah, so Tool Suite is it's a natural add-on for our Equipment Hound clients. Basically, it gives them a way to track that equipment life cycle from when they purchase it from the marketplace to when they're using it, so they can really stay on top of when this needs to be maintained, when this needs to be either replaced, and then now you can start to use all that repository of data to start feeding AI algorithms, machine learning, so that instead of scrambling when a piece of equipment goes down, now you're ahead of the curve, and you know that in 6 months we're probably going to have to replace this or repair it. So let's get on top of that. Let's get to Equipment Hound, get that procured right away, so that you're not losing any downtime, which for these companies costs, millions of dollars a day if there's downtime. So it's saving the industry a lot of money.
And so, obviously AI and ML are very hot topics today, but most people talk about them as if they're sort of magic, like you just implement an algorithm and somehow it works for you. But what you need is an actual data set and data for these algorithms to pull off of to actually help you make more intelligent decisions and give intelligent recommendations to help your business. So one side of it is tool suite. It is that backbone for the data and ML algorithms for integration that can help them improve all their businesses from logistics, timing, equipment lifecycle maintenance. And then you also have Equipment Hound, and the more companies we have accessing equipment through the system, the more we'll be able to feed those algorithms in to help make more intelligent recommendations for businesses to improve their procurement cycle. So an example of that would be like a BOP, a blow preventer, that's very prominent in the oil and gas sector. Every time that somebody procures that piece of equipment, we know there's going to be another 100 pieces of ancillary equipment that are going to be needed for that. That's what we're going to build towards, actually a drag and drop mechanism where they can take their entire well schematic, upload it into Equipment Hound, and we can automate a lot of that procurement activity through the vendors active inside of the system. We have a very good team. You'll notice two of the gentlemen sitting in front of you. We also have Hal Hemrick. You know, it's the same last name. He's our father and chairman and CEO. Wealth of experience in the natural resource industry and public markets. Craig Garrett, who's our managing director based out of Calgary. Danny Lee, who's worked on multitude of public companies all across the natural resource sector. You've got Sagar Laxman, who's our CTO based in Dubai, an expert in AI and ML learning, machine algorithms. And Anthony Bryan, who's based in Montreal, that runs our e-commerce segments. Edward Ferrado, who's has a huge history in the natural resource industry, along with Mark Sulsom, who's the actual drilling manager for Sargent National Oil Company, has run multiple public companies himself, and Sophia Shane, who was a long time with the Lundin Group of companies as well. And so a great background of public executives that are helping us build the business.
What's important in that as well is that we come from these industries. We've run the operations. We've worked hands-on. So when we built this, we didn't build it because we thought it was something that this industry needed. We built it because we knew it, and we knew nobody was providing it. So we built it from the operations perspective, so that for them it works exactly how it needs to work for them, and it's something that they desperately need.
So a very tight shareholding. The two gentlemen in front of you own about 60% of the business, along with some other insiders that own close to 70%. We have about 30% floated on the market, and we are currently doing a $2 million capital raise with a share at 30 cents and a warrant at 40 cents for a year.
So basically, the revenue model for our two platforms, Equipment Hound, we take a minimum 5% commission off of any equipment that gets sold through the platform, but that's a minimum. So we've made up to 15% on certain transactions so far. We will be introducing membership fees as we go forward. We've kept it free to join currently because we wanted to bring as much supply into the platform as we could, because we know if buyers come and there's no equipment to look at, then it's pretty hard to get them to come back. With Tool Suite, it's a software as a service, so it's a monthly fee that can range anywhere from $500 a month to $15,000 a month, depending on the size of the client. But these two platforms work, hand in hand. So as one grows, the other one's going to come with it. And as we said before, we started out with about $500,000 worth of inventory when we first launched Equipment Hound, and now we're sitting over $250 million today, and steadily growing. So we know we have the supply there. We know that it's products that the end users need.
And so going forward for 2023, we believe that we can achieve $5.2 million in revenue this year. We believe we have the opportunity to be cash flow positive if we achieve those targets, along with tripling that the next year and onward. I think that with all the equipment that's on the site, we expect to turn over around 30% per year. And so if we're sitting at $250 million today, we anticipate doing between 50 to 70 million in sales or in equipment movement off of that. And as Dane said, anywhere between 5 to 15% markup on that equipment. And our IR person is here, Mr. Bruce Nurse, so you can speak with him if you have any questions as well. And I guess now we want to turn it over to any questions from the audience.
In review of the business model, what I'm curious about is you're taking equipment on consignment, or you're actually purchasing it or leasing it? Just clear my brain.
Sure. So there's a couple sides of it, right? One is where we have it's a multi-vendor, Equipment Hunt is a multi-vendor system. So we have buyers, we have sellers. Every seller has a catalog, and they commit a certain amount of inventory to that catalog. Besides that, we are qualified with end user companies, so we're actively bidding on projects. So, for instance, it would be Dubai Petroleum. Dubai Petroleum comes to us for 10,000 feet of 13 5/8 casing. We will then go to our vendors inside of our system to bid on that contract. Now, with that contract, we take a minimum 5% markup, or you can call it markup or commission. Depending on the economic dynamics of the transaction, it can be anywhere between 5% to 15%. And now, if it's an intercompany rental opportunity, we take 20% of the rental contract.
So, based on the supply chain problems, how would you consider your prospects? Are you at an advantage or a disadvantage?
No, we're absolutely an advantage for all of these companies that are utilizing us. And because we're a global company, the supply chain dynamics that a lot of people deal with are not necessarily relevant to ourselves. So, and because we're qualified with the end user companies, again, I'll use Dubai Petroleum as an example. As long as they approve the equipment that we're supplying them, we can take that equipment from anywhere in the world. So it can be from India, it can be from Malaysia, it can be from Thailand. So if there are supply chain problems with China, it doesn't stop us from using the rest of the vendors in our inventory to provide a cost-effective solution.
And the person's company that's either renting it, leasing it, or buying it is upfront paying for shipping and handling, correct?
So it depends on the actual dynamics of the transaction. It's the Incoterms. It could be FOB, or it could be CIF. If you're buying a new pipe, then it's usually 40% down, 20% midway, 40% on delivery. If it's a piece of used equipment, it's 100% upfront. So the compressor that we just sold to a company with operations in Angola, it's a UK company with an operation in Angola. One of our vendors is a Thai manufacturer. They purchased the compressor for them at 100% upfront. We made a 50% commission on that, and we handled all the logistics and paperwork behind that to get it to Angola.
One is your logistics, or it's a marketplace for buyers and sellers. The other part is the software, which I'm interested in.
Right.
Would you say the software is a recurring income? Like, do you license the software out to your clients?
It is, absolutely. So Tool Suite is what the data management solution that we call it. It's a software as a service model. So it's charged on a monthly or quarterly basis. So it can be anywhere between $500 a month to $15,000 a month, depending on the business. It's also got multiple modules inside of that software. So it could just be for the equipment maintenance, but then it can also be for their entire operational reporting as well.
Do you see that's a better margin, the software business, in terms of both recurring and margins, or is it the transaction income is more marginal, which is the marketplace? The software is just the recurring income, long-term growth.
I think the margins are fantastic in the software as a service segment. It's just that the lead time to implement the software takes a bit longer, but generally once they're a client, they're going, unless you do something very wrong, they're going to be your client for life. Right.
Because I noticed your competitors in the software market were big guys. So you would have
True, but this is sort of the issue with, I would say, the natural resource sector in general, is that you have SAP and Oracle. Who are very good. They make great software, but they're incredibly expensive. They're incredibly difficult to implement. And not only when you purchase their software, you also have to hire a team of SAP or Oracle trained people to actually manage the license of the software that you bought from them. So what you find is that they generally put it into their accounting and contract management, and then they stop because it's so expensive and difficult to implement. So what we do is we integrate with those softwares. And so for most of our clients, they'll have SAP and Oracle for their contract management and accounting, and we'll act as that data gathering net for all their field operations. One, because we understand the dynamics of the field operations, so it's much easier for them to use. It's much more slick. And it's also much more cost effective.
Okay. And do you see the growth long term in the software side of the business or your transactional marketplace? Because they're very different businesses.
Yeah. It's different, but it's also connected, right? I think one of the issues that we find with a lot of our clients in the e-commerce segment is that although they have the ERP system that's supposed to be managing their equipment, most of them don't utilize it correctly. And so what you find is a lot of missing documentation. So even for Lamprell, who we just signed up, they're a multi-billion-dollar EPC company in the Middle East. They gave us a bunch of equipment that was sort of as is where is. And I said, well, you must have the historical records. They said, well, we did. But the man that was operating it quit and took his computer with him, and now we don't know where the files are, right? And so by utilizing our technology, they can actually track the entire historical operation of that asset, along with all the testing certification, which makes it easier for them to sell into the marketplace. It also makes it easier for buyers to go to the bank to get financing for that asset as well. If that answers your question, sorry. Okay.
Could you maybe go over this again a little bit? I always like to look at a business and focus on the problem that you're solving, because you've got two, particularly in the transaction marketplace, from the buyer and the seller, and why are they coming to you guys? There must be a significant problem that they have that you guys could solve. So if you could answer that.
Sure. I guess there's multiple problems we're solving. One is an access to cost-effective solutions for their business, for their procurement operations. I think generally companies have a set vendor list, and because there's such a huge turnover in the employees, that vendor list never gets changed. It's not very dynamic, and so they're not getting access to new companies, not getting access to better quality equipment. The second side of that is the surplus market. Generally, what you have in the market, particularly we'll use Lamprell or another service company. They have to overbuy for all the projects that they operate on. When that project's finished, generally, unless they're using that equipment for another project, it comes back and it sits in the yard and depreciates to a point where they generally scrap it, or it depreciates to a point, or it gets to a point where they have no more yard space, and then they scrap it because they don't have a team that's focused on using it. On top of the fact that when they try to resell it to somebody, they usually go within their vendor list. So if nobody in their vendor list buys it, then that's the end of the conversation. And because they're focused on getting new contracts. Right. And so by uploading the surplus equipment into our system, they now have access to thousands of companies worldwide. And because we're qualified with the end user companies, we know about all the operations that are happening globally, which means that we have a much higher ability to take that surplus equipment and find a home for it. Does that make sense? Okay, thank you very much.